Yeah, Professor Reddy, should we start or?
Sir, we will start, sir.
Yeah, means now I think 12, 10,
Sir, we will
15.
start now.
Okay.
So, good morning to one and all. A hearty welcome to the fourth day, 10th session. AICTE sponsored online Apple MDP on environment and sustainability need of the day. Today's guest speaker, we have respected Professor Dr. Suresh Jain, Professor, Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, and Indian Institute of Technology, Tirupati. And welcome to Dr. Suresh Jain Garu. Hearty welcome to Suresh Jain Garu, and hearty welcome to Professor Eswar Reddy Garu, Professor and BOI Chairman, Head Department of Civil Engineering, Sri Vidyanagar Engineering College, and all the hearty welcome to all the dignitaries, all the participants present over here. And I request now Mr. Sudhir Kumar, Assistant Professor, Sri Vidyanagar Engineering College, to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to all. So it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Suresh Jain for the current session. Dr. Suresh Jain is Dean Professor at the Department of Civil Engineering.
Sudhir, your voice is not audible.
Sir, is it okay, sir?
No.
Sir, is it okay, sir? No?
No. Voice is breaking. I think you can remove that microphones and you can speak.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, is it okay, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Suresh Jain is Dean and Professor at the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh, India. He had received his PhD degree in Air Quality Modeling for Urban Transport Emissions from Civil Engineering Department, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and Master of Technology in Environmental Engineering and Management from Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, India. He had received DART scholarship during his master's degree, and he worked on human health and ecological risk assessment at University of Stuttgart, Germany from May 2000 to February 2001. Professor Jain has more than 17 years of research, teaching, and consultancy experience in the area of environmental science and engineering. Prior to joining IIT Tirupati, Professor Jain was professor and head Department of Energy and Environment, the Energy and Resource Institute, School of Advanced Studies, New Delhi. He was teaching postgraduate level courses which include air quality management, air pollution and climate change, environmental health and risk assessment, integrated impact assessment and environmental management system, which has given him wide experience in various environmental issues. Professor Jain also worked for SGS India Private Limited. In SGS, he was leading the team and was responsible for environmental consultancy in the field of urban air quality modeling, environmental impact assessment, environmental management, carbon footprint analysis, life cycle analysis, etc. His industry experience has given practical insights and has been of immense help in his teaching and research, which also gives a distinctive advantage while carrying out his duties as a teacher and researcher. Professor Jain is a member of State Level Expert Committee on Environment, Government of India, Andhra Pradesh, Government of Andhra Pradesh since November 2019. Professor Jain is Nodal Officer from IIT Tirupati for Andhra Pradesh Pollution Control Board for implementation of National Clean Air Program at the state level nominated by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. Professor Jain is an expert member of BRICS Network University on behalf of Government of India. He is founding member of Global Center for Clean Air Research, University of Surrey, UK. He has experience of successful supervision and evaluation of postgraduate research students at PhD and master levels worldwide. He has 3 international national books monographs, around 60 international papers in general to his credit. Presently, he is supervising 4 PhD students. He is involved in several international and national projects related to the above topic. He is a member of several professional bodies. He also associated with the Ford Foundation USA and Open Society Foundations UK for International Fellowship Program. He is recipient of International Visitors Leadership Program USA 2017, Vice Chancellors of Faculty of the Year Award 2017, Commonwealth Professional Fellow 2016 to 17 UK, and KTP Visiting Fellow 2014 by UTS Sydney, and Roll of Honor by the Energy of Research Institute 2012 to 13 and Earthian 2013 award by Wipro as a part of sustainability program. Professor Jain is working with many international groups such as UTS Australia, University of Surrey, University of Birmingham UK, and Yale University, University of California USA. So with this I conclude. So I request Hemadri sir to take over the session. Thank you, sir.
Sir, next is Dr. Suresh Jain, sir. Please take over the session, sir.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for a detailed, elaborative introduction. And I just want to thank Professor Reddy, Professor Raju, and Sudhir for inviting me. And I'm sorry for that. Like change is brought in because of my health. I was not well, so the schedule change was there. So instead of Monday, so today I'm with you. I try to give a talk on that, but I believe like we all belongs to the academic fraternity. So my talk will be more, I want a more of the discussion mode. So wherever you have any query, wherever you have any points, you can ask me, you can raise the hand, and we can interact in between also. Because that's not like a lecture mode, basically from one side and the receiving another side only. So my request to all the faculty colleagues are there. Like if you have any query, please stop me in between and you can ask me. Thank you, Professor Reddy, once again for inviting me.
You are welcome, sir.
Yeah, it's my like I'm just very happy to be part of this event, and also very happy to see that somebody is taking the, you can say, the lead now in the sustainability aspect, and that's going to be very, very important. And just confirm somebody, Sudhir, you confirm my slides are visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's very important. Like somewhere now we are talking about the environment and sustainability. Otherwise, in the engineering community, what we were like, we were working very much in the silos, and we were not going beyond our boundaries. I think this is the time where the pressure on the system, basically whether you talk about the environment or the urban system or the geographical system, pressure is becoming so high, it is going to be difficult for us to sustain the pressure. And because of that pressure, lots of implications are happening to our environment, to the human system, and the damage cost is going to be very, very high. So what I am going to talk about today is the sustainability assessment in context to the life cycle analysis and GHG accounting. This talk is going to be very simple, basically how exactly we do that, how these sustainability assessment tools will help us to understand a particular concept and where we can apply. And then wherever you want, the good part of that, these tools are, whatever the segments are you are working, whether you are in the civil engineering itself, for example, if you are working in structure, whether you're working in water resources or environment, transport, you can apply these types of tool wherever you want, and you will get certain directions, which is very important for the decision making. So my focus will be on the life cycle analysis and I just start with the things like sustainability premise when we talk about that. So we can't keep doing what we are doing. The way our needs are growing, and country have to prosper, country have to develop. But the thing is that, is this going to be at the cost of the environment, or it is going to be cost of our resources like water, air we use? Like we are not getting the potable, good, safe drinking water. We are not getting the good quality air. So indirectly or directly are going to see that damage is going to happen to all of us, including the human beings and all the living beings, whether it is forest or wildlife. And so ultimately its damage is very high. And if you're not going to realize, the cost is going to be several folds high than what we are expecting today. And most important reason of all this pressure is because of urbanization. You can see, like, when we are talking about the case of urbanization in 1982, and if you are going to see how the population in the urban context was there during 1982, so you're going to see that approximately 1.9% of the mega cities were there with the more than 10 million population. And you can see it's very clear where you can have those mega cities in 1982. Gradually, what is happening, the way these numbers are increasing and the population is coming from the rural area and migrating towards urban, so it's creating unnecessary pressure. And you can see from 1982 to 2010, earlier we were having almost 4 and 5 mega cities. In next, you can say 30 years, you can see every content is having more than 4, you can say, mega cities whenever we are talking about this. So what is happening, basically the density of the population is increasing and the number of people are increasing in a particular given space. So what is happening is we are not able to manage our resources, and if we are not able to manage our resources, it's creating unnecessary pressure on our urban infrastructure, or that results into certain damage to the environment. And now you see, when we talk about the predicted 2030, you're going to see the mostly it's going to be the mega cities like that. So definitely, if what the problem is, what we are not able to handle the pressure today, if you see, you go to any urban city, for example, even within our Andhra Pradesh itself, you go to Vizag, the huge collection of the waste is lying. Hyderabad, you just see the mountains of waste is there. You go to Delhi or Mumbai, the waste mountains are lying here and there, and the burning is happening. It's contributing to the air pollution, and it's contributing to the leachate, which leach down into the ground, and it starts polluting the, you can say, the groundwater and the surface water, and then results into the contamination. So basically, what is happening is that today, if we are not able to handle, what is going to happen by 2030, that the pressure is going to be increasing more and more. And the problem is, whatever you do, any activity belongs to you is having certain footprints to this. Like what resources you are consuming, how much you are consuming, it's entirely depend what exactly you are doing and how exactly you are doing. For example, you want to travel 1 kilometer of, you can say, length. So one way is you just walk around, just go by feet. Second is you go by bicycle. Third is you use the two-wheeler motor vehicle. You go by car, or you use the public transport. So in all the 5 cases, you're going to see that you are going to do the purpose. The purpose is to travel 1 kilometer, but there are different choices are there. So depending upon you, your style, your culture, how you think, like whatever your activity, how it is contributing to the system, how it is going to make an impact, will make you help you in choosing out of these 5. You feel like, okay, 1 kilometer is okay. If it is not that burning or the warm, you may prefer to walk means it's going to give you like almost zero, you can say, carbon footprints, but at the same time it will be making you physically more strong. So that will, it's a win-win situation both sides, but depends. Like you don't have a time, you want to do the action quickly, you want to use certain motorized vehicles. So there are certain implications for that. So what I want to say, when the pressure is increasing like that, so definitely this pressure results into more and more demands. And if you are not going to make your you can say thought process or strategies or the planning and the policy very unique to serve them, looking into the context that you are taking care for everybody, you are supporting the infrastructure, but at the same time that infrastructure should not be carbon intensive or the resource intensive. So that philosophy should be there. Unless it is not there in your planning and policy, it is going to be difficult to achieve the sustainability into the system. So that in an overall, you can say, understanding when you talk about the sustainability. Then this one assessment has been done, like the way our resources are used by the people. You can see this is the way, like they are mentioning that how many planets would we need if everyone lived in the style of a typical Swiss citizen. So if you assume like if we also starts using the same luxury what the Switzerland people are using, so this is basically a reference point. Then US needs 4.8, approximately 5 Hertz. Belgium itself is a small country, but it needs almost 4 Hertz. Germany needs 3, 4. What exactly I want to showcase here is that your lifestyle and the way you live the life is making huge pressure on our Earth's resources. And if this is going to continue, and you think like the developing country have to bear the cost, it is not going to happen. It means there should be certain synchronization between the developed country and developing country, and they also have to put certain cap on their habits, on the lifestyle, so that their per capita, you can say, utilization of resources or per capita release of emissions should go down, and somewhere they have to be more, you can say, inconsistent with the developing country. But that's not so easy what we are talking about. Even you see China is in the same, you can say, side the movement, that they need also very high amount of resources. China being in a developing country, why they need it more is almost 50% of the resources, whatever the product they made, they are supplying to these countries. So what is happening is the resources what they consume is not basically for them. It is half of the resources is because of these countries, because they are supplying their resources or their products or the services to the other countries. So basically, in a way, China is not consuming for their people, they are consuming more because of the other countries also. So what we want is that somewhere the technology can give in a solution, but at the same time, your lifestyle, your behavior, your way of thought process is also going to help at a long run. Technology may be giving you a solution to its small level. So one of the first paper which comes in the system, which talks about the safe operating space for humanity, and that was published in Nature in 2009. So what happens is first time they highlighted that the way we are consuming the resources, it's not going to be sustainable, and it is going to create more and more pressure. If you're going to see the recommendations of now the recent IPCC report of 2021, the way our commitment which we made in Paris Agreement under the Scope 21, so what is happening is most of the countries are not fulfilling the commitment what they made in COP 21 in 2015, that they are going to reduce approximately 20 to 30% of their GHG emissions compared to the 2005 level by 2030. So this is the commitment they have made in the COP 21. So the assessment which was pending and due for 2021, that showcased that most of the countries, the commitment they gave under their NDC, nationally determined contributions, that they are not in sync with what the commitment they have made. So looking into this particular paper, which is highly cited paper and published in one of the very reputed journal, the Nature, and almost 28 scientists, they came together, they discussed like how our operation should be safe for the entire humanity. So when you talk about this, they discussed, and they came up with a certain 9 boundaries. For example, climate change, ocean acidification, biodiversity, like that. They bring into 9 aspects. And what they mentioned is, if we are crossing, like for example, you are going to see this picture where the green you can say color is there. So basically the inner green shading represents the proposed safe operating, you can say, the space of all the 9 boundaries. But you can see the 3 of these boundaries are already crossed this green safe zone, and some are very you can say almost first safe limit they have already crossed, and you can say the 2/3 is already reached into, for example, ocean acidification. When you talk about the change in the land use, the way currently the pressure which is coming on our land resources, which is most important resource on the earth, is the land. And the way we are using the land resource by saying sometimes it's a wasteland, barren land, there is nothing so the concept of barren land and the wasteland. Every land is very useful land. Only the way is how you make it useful, that is up to you. Otherwise, there is nothing so-called the wasteland. And by the name of wasteland, people are using that land for multiple purpose, and we are losing the most important resource on the earth. So that's where the pressure, these scientists work together, and they are saying that the boundaries, the three boundaries, basically you see the biodiversity loss. We are already discussing about the climate change and the nitrogen and phosphorus cycle. Nitrogen cycle is already crossed. It means the contribution of the nitrogen, or you can say proportion of nitrogen in the atmosphere, is already disturbed, and which indirectly contributing to the nitrous oxide, which is also one of the important greenhouse gas emission, and its potential to cause the climate change or global warming is almost close to 300 times more potential than when you compare to CO2. So this is where we have to understand how our actions are making an impact to the system. So that particular paper talks about first time we have to take care about these boundaries, and how to make our strategy in such a way that we can control our activities in such a way that the pressure on all these 9 boundaries can be managed, even though the 3 boundaries are already crossed: biodiversity, climate change, and the nitrogen cycle, and few more boundaries like the ocean acidification, change in the land use, and the global freshwater use, and the phosphorus cycle. They are also in the at the edge of the vulnerability. So it means if we are not going to take certain actions now, it is going to be difficult. For example, the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus, the way our consumption of fertilizers increasing for the agriculture side, it's creating lots of pressure to the system. So it's an unbalanced system is happening, and what is happening, more of the reactive nitrogen is coming into the atmosphere, and that starts playing with the other, you can say, change into the system, and it results into the global warming. So there are, you can say, imbalance happening into the earth system, and that is creating huge pressure on the environment. So what exactly they were talking about this, first time when they were talking about in 2008 that we want to see that our system should be like Holocene like state, where changes comes natural. For example, you remember the ice age, and so even though sometime it was warmer, but it's not happening immediately. But the things what is happening now, like what IPCC also mentioned, that the temperature is rising, and we see the unprecedented scene. For example, Delhi, now it's a break the you can say record of almost 42 years in terms of the rain. We never saw the Delhi is flooded like this. Couple of years back, the Chennai got a flood. We never saw that the Chennai can be exposed with the flood. Germany very recently, couple of months before, Germany was flooded. New York very recently was flooded. So people never saw that flood was coming in their own place. That at least one generation or 2 generations they never saw. So what is happening? Basically, these are all because of our actions. And if you are not going to move towards more of sustainable approach, I think it's going to be difficult to manage our resources, and the implications in terms of the disasters, which is also highlighted by this particular paper, that the disasters is going to be so many that we are not going to able to manage, and the consequence to the humanity is going to be very high in terms of the cost. So what they have done, 2009, they published this paper. They have first time identified by using the scientific methods, and they categorized all the problems into 9, you can say, planetary boundaries. And then after that, the sequence, the 2015, the Paris Agreement happens, where they discussed we have to limit the temperature that is happening because of global warming up to 1.5 degree. That is the all people trying to help. Otherwise, the consequence is going to be very high. And then update on the planetary boundaries framework. So now number of, you can say, treaties have been signed where they have to take care of multiple aspects into the system. Basically, if you see, people are using everywhere, you say sustainable agriculture, sustainable urban transport, sustainable water consumption. Means sometimes we are using this term is like a more fancy, and it becomes like a jargon words. So understanding about the sustainability is very difficult, because it's not that easy to define the sustainability. But somewhere, some example which comes in 1713, when they talked about the forestry. And what was happen is that, sorry, what happens at that time, like the early industrial use of resources, most of the time we were dependent on the timber, and timber was used for the building, construction, and fuel, many purposes. And the way the timber consumption was going on, so we saw that almost nothing left by 900 BC. So what happens that one of the chief executive of this 18th century, Roald Jackson, found that if the things are going to be like this, and if our logging and reforestation, what the most important words from this statement is that the logging and reforestation must be in balance for success of the local economy, because your local economy was very much dependent on the timber product. And if you're just going to consume and consume, after certain time the resource will be completely gone. Then how your economy is going to sustain, how the people's livelihood is going to be sustained. It means you need certain balance to make this particular resource to be used for longer duration. So that's the point where this things comes in mind, and that showcase that how the forestry at that time being the backbone of the local economy. So looking into this aspect, that first time they recorded and mentioning that the sustainable approach to the use of resources, linking natural resources and economy, is very, very important. So it's very clearly demonstrating with this example that if you're not going to take care of your resources in a sustainable way in terms of consumption, then it is going to be a problem, and it will definitely going to affect ultimately to your economy. And if economy is going to be impacted, you know the consequences of that. Presently, the COVID, which is making so much of damage, and when the lockdown happens, you know how our economy of our country or most of the country in the globe was severely affected, and it's very difficult for many countries even to come up again. So you can understand, if something which is going to affect your economy, then making a balance is going to be difficult. So that's one of the reason in all our actions we have to think before taking a particular decision. So that's what mean by sustainability in context. We know it when we see, but can we measure it? Answer cannot be easily yes, because everybody having their own dimension when they are working. For example, if I work in agriculture, I say if I replace the fertilizers with the biofertilizers or the compost, I am doing sustainability. Means I am practicing the sustainability. Yes, one of the element is maybe sustainable in context, but we cannot say the entire process or entire service of that particular domain is sustainable. It means there are multiple dimensions where we have to first understand how exactly we have to define the sustainability. For example, recently, you know, in the market, the global reporting initiatives are there, and where they say that I'm working into environment, I work in the economics, I work in the society, and that's why my GRE index is high, and I'm contributing to the sustainability. Sometimes numbers are there on the paper. We don't know what exactly you are doing, what actions are there on your ground. It's going to be difficult. So just simply looking into the numbers, you cannot say that your actions are sustainable, or the things what you are doing is more sustainable. So it's going to be very, very difficult unless it is going to be very important in the context. So it is necessary to go beyond company site. So for example, you saw the life cycle of a particular context. Like for example, you grow the cotton, the spinning happens in the one industry or maybe multiple industry, the bleaching of dyes, knitting, assembly, then go for shopping, use, and ultimately the disposal. So what is happening is we are looking only the aspects into cellulose. We are not talking about what is happening with this product and what is happening at the end of the life. For example, now we are debating about the plastic. So what is happening when you see the plastic is a very beautiful material. It's very important material. But the problem is we just looked into this aspect and we found that plastic is the worst material. But the problem is it is not true. Only the problem is during this rest of the life cycle, we have not taken care about the plastic, and then at this stage it becomes a problem for the system. It means if you properly use the plastic and at the end of life, if you collect appropriately and then reuse for multiple purpose, you may convert into waste to energy. So it may be a good option. But the problem is once you use and throw it, it may go into various, you can say, environmental domains. For example, it go to your drainage, it goes to your river body, it goes to the soil, it goes to multiple ecosystem, and it starts, you can say, degrading that particular environment. And the life of the plastic normally is several years, so it is going to stay there more and is going to create an issue. So it's creating lots of issue. The problem is because we are not looking into a particular lens. It means we have to see how exactly to control, how to manage. If you know those things and you have the answer to that, then those things will not be in a problem unless you are not taking care for that. So if you want to give certain answers to the actions, normally people nowadays are using the life cycle approach. Word itself saying life cycle means once I see the cotton cultivation, it means I am starting from the agriculture stage, then the industry, then the customers, and then finally the disposal aspect. So when I'm looking at this angle, like what are the different aspects? So first is the agriculture stage, where I see like fertilizers have been drawn, water has been drawn, then energy has been drawn, labor has been drawn, and then you are getting certain product. And this product then finally in between it's going to the industry. There is certain transport is there, then certain emissions will be coming. Then you are using lots of resources in the industry itself. Maybe industry will be like this. This could be 3 different levels of industry, or maybe within one industry you are getting all these 4 levels of product. Then finally the products goes to the market, customers will take it, then you start using the operational life of the product, and then the disposal life means after the product life is completed, it goes for the disposal. So if you look entirely the particular product or any services in this with this lens, all together with this cycle, I think you will understand the concept where the impact is happening more, where the impact is happening less. I will give you some examples later where you can really correlate with your thought process. Then how can LCA be used? Like one is the compare alternatives. Like for example, you being a civil engineer, so you want to say like, okay, I'm using some of the construction material, which is very much traditional. And I want to mix like people are saying the industry waste, which is waste in terms of like, for example, silica fumes. You want to mix into your construction product. Is this going to be more, you can say, better in terms of what? In terms of cost, in terms of life, in terms of energy consumption, there are many aspects are there. So it means if you want to compare 2 items, 2 products, 2 services, you can do with the life cycle. You can identify the hotspots. For example, in the previous example, you can see which stage basically in the entire, you can say, the life cycle of this particular product, whether the maximum impact is happening at this stage or the second stage or the third stage, like the 5th stage or the 7th stage. So you can find out, oh, maybe the 4th stage, which is the most, you can say, resource intensive, or either you can say this is the particular stage where emissions are maximum, or you can say the in terms of resource intensity, in terms of the inputs, agriculture stage is the having the maximum impact. So you get to know exactly in the entire life cycle where the maximum resources are used, where the maximum energy is used, where the maximum impacts are happening. So once you know that, you will make a strategy to overcome those issues. So that's where the life cycle will help you to understand exactly. Without knowing that, it's difficult, like which particular stage of the product or services is making a more impact or the less. Then they invest in the resource intelligently. After you identify this, you can use the resources very judiciously. For example, like this 3D paper, they are coming with the technology, like when you're using the flex, generally used made of the PVC, and so they are using so highly toxic paints and the chemicals. But when you're using certain comparative, you can say product, they done the life cycle and they find out that the products they are using, or you can say the resources they are using, is more environmental friendly compared to the existing one, and they are selling their products by showcasing this comparison to the audience. Even the cost may be a little higher, but people like who are more conscious about the environment or the system, they feel like, okay, if 10% more or 15% more I have to pay, but one side my activity is contributing to better environment. So this is one where you can get to know which product is more superior, which service is more superior in which context. Sets goal and the measure progress. You yourself, for example, if you are interested in knowing what are the hotspot in your academic building or your entire, you can say, the institution, like if you want to do the entire life cycle of your entire institution or carbon footprint of your institution, you get to know which aspect is having maximum carbon footprints or least carbon footprints. Once you get to know, it will be easy. Like for example, in 2017 we have developed a tool like to make the educational institution carbon neutral and sustainable. And I know that almost 13 institutions in India, they have used our tool to make their academic institutions more carbon neutral and sustainable. That includes the dimensions of environment, that includes the dimensions of economics, social aspects, as well as the academic aspects. So, and many of those, even the private universities, they are using and trying to make their campus more sustainable. So this is where you can see the target. And once you know what are your carbon footprints and what are the areas where the maximum impact is happening, you can put your targets and goals. Like last month only, like one of the university senior administrative professor, they were asking, like they are taking certain measures to reduce their you can say impacts by taking certain actions, and they want to know more like where in those areas what sort of you can say measures to be taken so that their campus will be more of carbon friendly for the system. So this is the way like you can make in a progress for your system, whether it is industry, whether it is household, whatever is there, you can use these tools for your decision making. Benchmark performance, you can compare once you know like it is there, or if you know the products like how much it is impacting, you can make in a benchmark. Earlier you see the advertisements were not open, you cannot challenge the others product unless you have in a solid region, but nowadays it's very much open. You are challenging the others company product because you have any complete information about both the products, and you're saying my product is superior on what aspects, and you are proudly saying my carbon footprints are almost 1/10 of your carbon footprints. My process, industrial process, is a more environmental friendly compared to yours one. So like for example, you heard about that the companies are having ISO 14001 certification, or the OSHA standards are there. Like that we have a lots of, you can say, certifications which comes under ISO as well, like 14,064, 65, where we do talks about the carbon footprints and then how much the greenhouse gas emissions are taking place from your activities. Likewise, you manage the risk and communicate and substantiate. You proudly say my campus is sustainable. You can see the best examples in the country. Even if you talk about only purely the academic part, you go to MIT, you go to Harvard, you go to any of those institutions, there is a separate sustainability cell. They are taking care of all our activities or the aspects like how to make their system sustainable. And that is why it is so, because your students who are learning, they are learning by examples or the practical examples on the campus itself, and when they go out from the campus they will practice it. So it's a win-win situation from both the sides. What culture, what learnings you are giving to your students, they are learning, and at the same time they are implementing into the future environment. Then the how industries use the life cycle, they say like the product LCA to support actions and the claims. They want to showcase whether my product is superior or superior in what context, and if not, then how I have to do that so that my product becomes better. Corporate footprints to guide the sustainability strategy and communication. You go to many of the developed countries, now they have their typical carbon, you can say, targets are there. So they told very clearly to various companies, you have to reduce your carbon footprints by so and so. So automatically it becomes you can say compulsion. It's not now voluntary only, it becomes even the regulatory that you have to reduce your carbon footprint. So if you are proactive, if you are voluntarily doing from the beginning, that type of risk at the end or suddenly you will be able to bear those jerks. Otherwise it's difficult for you to sustain in the market. Then the life cycle thinking is a guide for the product and the process design that will help you from the beginning. If you are using this approach, it will help you to understand exactly like how to design your product so that the pressure on the resources, what the materials is used, and in terms of the impact which is happening because of the resources, because every material is not 100% utilized, entire energy is not 100% utilized. It means certain loss of material and the energy is going to happen, which directly or indirectly goes to the environment and then impacting the system. And the fourth is the standards, data sharing, and the matrices for all the products. You have in a checklist, you have in a comparative metrics, you can compare, you can take the decisions, and it's very easy for you to manage the resources. Any questions? I will be happy to take if you have any particular questions as of now from the audience.
Sir, one participant asked one question.
Yeah.
How can we avail or use the tool in reducing the carbon emissions in our institute, sir?
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. Yes. So when we're talking about the reduction in carbon emissions, for example, 4 and 5 activities are most important. 4 and 5 activities means like you can see our energy consumption, then you can see the amount of waste we release, and then we have to see how much the transport is used, the water consumption is there, and the different type of emissions are there. The emissions in the sense like you have diesel generator set, so how much the diesel you are consuming, how you have to move. So for example, you can move from the grid based electricity, you can move to the renewable energy. That's very easy nowadays. Most of the buildings, they are taking care to put the solar system and so, right? And the appliances, what you are using as of now, if it is very much traditional, for example, you are going to compare the incandescent bulb with the LED bulb, right? So energy consumption is huge. So looking like that, there are certain actions are there. If you brought in those actions into your system, you can reduce your carbon footprints, which I am going to explain in the subsequent slides as well. Any other queries, please?
Sir,
yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Ji, ma'am.
Sunita from
Yes,
Vidya Jyoti Engineering College, sir.
Ji, ma'am.
Sir. Sir, in our college, the management has installed the solar panels, sir.
Right.
Also the biogas plant near the canteen, and rainwater harvesting structures where the slopes are. Three rainwater harvesting structures have been constructed, sir.
Okay, very good, ma'am.
So in this regard means, yes, sir. So in this regard means, can we calculate means as per LCA or
Yes.
reducing the carbon emissions?
Yes.
Will there be any calculations or any kind of methods, sir, to
Yes,
show
yes.
or
There are
analyze, sir?
there are methods. Maybe in another few minutes I will take you through that also. I have a small exercise with me, but I'll just showcase how to do that basically, right? And it will be easy. It's not going to be like a rocket science. I tell you, these tools are not the rocket science. It's just simply a mass balance exercise of our actions are there, which I'm going to explain, and it can be done. And even the professors, what they can do, for example, they can build the assignment in such a way that all these exercises can be done automatically, and management will be also active, and students will learn also. And at the end of the day, at the end of the course, you will find out you have done the entire exercise for the campus. So this way, it's what we are doing is basically we are helping the students to learn practical aspects and how to audit that, how to account that. And at the management perspective also, they will start putting the data at one place. Otherwise, it's difficult, like how much consumption, how they are consuming, what resources they are consuming. It's very difficult. For example, I started this exercise in first time in Terry University, and at the same time, parallelly in the IIIT Delhi. The director itself called me like, yeah, I want to know what are the carbon footprints of my campus. and I want to take certain measures based on that. And you don't believe that the next phase of building which came was not even 5-star, it was the level of 7-star building. So that showcase that the leadership is also very, very important. When you want to take certain decisions in that direction, it is going to be very, very important. So I'm going to take, ma'am, that example, and I'm going to share all the resources. The tool is very readily available. I will share with the Professor Raju and Professor Reddy. They can also share with all the participants. You can use, and later also if you need my help, I will be happy to contribute in this direction.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Any other person? Okay, so I'm moving to the subsequent. I was talking about with the life cycle assessment, what we can do. I told you, like I just take another example with the participants. So for example, I'm using some specs. I see Dr. Raju is also using some specs, right? The lenses are used, and I believe many other participants are using. I'm just simply asking one question, maybe just quickly say yes or no. Yes. Are our number, you can say, of these specs are same or different?
Sir, I request you to repeat, sir.
I'm saying we are using the spectacles, the goggles, or means our lenses, yes, right? Sir. So I believe like out of 46 participants, maybe 20 are using certain lenses.
Yes.
And my question is, all 20 people are using the same lens? Sorry, ma'am?
Different, sir. Different.
Different one, right? So I will just ask with Dr. Raju why we are using the different lenses.
Because of our eyesight, no, sir, we have a different power.
So it's our problem is different, right, sir? Somebody don't able to see for the farthest distance. Somebody is not able to see even what is very close to you, right? Yes, so our problems are different. So it means there are different lens for that, right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
And if there is no different lens, our problem cannot be sorted out.
Yes.
Same analogy I am drawing here. Like if you don't have a lens to see the problem, you will not able to see the problem.
Yes, sir.
I tell you another example with the same thing. Like when you go to this polythene bag industry, the pollution control boards, they are saying it's a green industry. Will you believe it? Compared to other industry, the polythene where you make the polythene in the industry, they say it's a green industry.
Okay, but it is polluted.
It may be surprise to many of the audience, but they say it's a green industry. I tell you why. Yes. The compliance the government give is, for example, you have to measure carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, you have to measure particulate matter, NOx, SOx, like those pollutants, right?
Yes.
But those are not released there. What they release is the organic nature of compound. They release the toxic chemicals, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, right? Volatile organic compounds, but you don't have any tool to measure it. So once you don't have the tool, anything to measure it, you don't know whether it is there or not. And what the tool you are having, it is not there. So it means you don't have any correct lens to see the problem. And once you don't have the correct lens to see the problem, for you the problem is not there because you are not able to identify the problem. Yes. Because your tool was not apt to check the problem.
Yes, sir.
Right, sir?
Yes, sir.
So that's the way we have to see what tool is required and how to use it is also very, very important. Otherwise, we will go into a different direction. And there the life cycle will help you to understand exactly into various, you can say, dimension. So for example, the same example when we were talking about the first stage of the resource extraction, refining, then the second stage of manufacturing, then the packaging and the distribution, then the use in the market or the end users, and the fifth is the end of life, and then lastly is there it's go to disposal, and there the question comes how to reuse. Then the concepts of 6 R's, resource efficiency, circular economy, all these dimensions come in picture. How exactly the waste of one stream can become a wealth or the resource for other stream. So this is where like the importance is there. First of all, we have to understand all these dimensions together. It's not like if you're talking about one aspect, then it is going to be problem. So I tell you the answer. When he was talking about the manufacturing part of polyethylene bags, definitely they are superior than any of the other alternative bags. Like if you compare to jute, if you compare to paper, wood, they are superior than your other products. But when you include all these cycles together in this, definitely the polythene bags are inferior compared to your other type of product. So this is the way, like when you think of some problem, you just think of with the multiple lens, where the focus is, what the system wants. Like for example, a particular industry say, no, I am interested only this, because their focus is this is okay. But sometimes when you are talking about the sustainability angle, holistic view, or the bird's eye view, the top, so it is very important you have to take care of all these aspects, so that at least you know whether this is the hotspot, whether this is the hotspot, or this is the major concern. So once you know that where are the major concern and what type of concern is there, you can put a certain, you can say, solution to that. Otherwise you will not take care. That's the same example which I was giving within an industry example. Then you have to, this is the where I was talking about the life cycle. You first have to understood like what are the inputs and what are the outputs of a particular system. If you're talking about only the industry, this is the smallest, you can say, your chain where you can talk about. For example, in this industry, you can think of your campus itself. You assume this is your campus. So what we want to see is what is going in this campus and what is going out from the campus. That's a simple exercise is there. We want to know how much energy is used, how much resources are used, and because of that, what are the emissions, what are the waste, and what are the products coming out. So once you know this mass balance, it will be easy for you to understand how exactly the impacts are happening from your exercise. So basically, when you able to understand the problem and you are able to see what are the dimensions you have to include in your system, it will be easy for you. Like you get in a chart of visualization, whether energy is the most important aspects, whether the water is the most important aspects. And if you are interested, you can give an answer to this. Like for example, you can directly give how much my carbon footprints are there, how much is my water footprints are there, ecosystem quality, natural resources, human health. These are just few examples. So the beauty with the life cycle assessment is it will give you all the answers together. It is not only give you the carbon footprints, it will talk about many dimensions. It connected to the water, it connected to the ecosystem, it connected to the human environment, it will be connecting to the resources used, and so on and so forth. And it will give you the two different levels of set of, you can say, understanding how much my emissions are there and where these emissions are making an impact on the system. So when I say system means as a human beings, how much the impact is happening to the human health, and how much the impact is happening to the overall ecosystem, and how much impact is happening to the resources. And if you understood this concept, all the people are interested. For example, me myself is interested about my health. Government is interested how much resources are consumed. I want to control that. Somebody is saying ki what is happening my ecosystem, I want to stop this. So if you want a complete comprehensive solution with understanding, after understanding all these dimensions, it will be easy for you to put certain interventions at the right place in the right direction so that the maximum benefit can be achieved. But once you are only talking about carbon footprint, there are certain trade-offs which I am going to tell you. Like maybe one side of the story, you are getting benefit in terms of CO2 emissions are reduced. It means your GHG emissions reduction take place. But because of those change in your decisions may result into something else which may be more dangerous to the environment, more dangerous to the human health. So it means if you want a complete answer, then life cycle type of tool. I'm not saying only the life cycle. There are various tools which can be used to understand the overall concept or entire system together, and you will be able to answer many of such questions, and it will make you more strong in terms of, because you have an evidence how your system is performing. I saw many industries across the globe, not only in India. they are so strong, they are so confident. Regulatory agencies are giving their example as a reference because they are so confident, they are doing so good that they becomes an example in the history. So like that, if we make it, nobody can touch you. Even you feel proud, like you say, when people work in Tata, Birla, and so they feel proud because there are certain legacy company where they are working, they feel to be connected with this. So because there is a, you can say there is a hallmark attached with this. So once the hallmark is having their unique features, your customers will increase automatically, your reputation will increase automatically, you will be having a better place in the market. So it's not only one side of the story. These types of interventions will make you completely unique, and once you are unique, the implications are many, and many of those implications are always on the positive side. So this is one where the life cycle analysis is going to help you to take a decision. Again, I will take few questions. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. May I intervene, sir?
Yes. Yeah.
Sir, Mrs. Sunita Edla again wants to ask some questions.
Ji, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Madam, you can ask, madam.
Ma'am, sir, actually all these parameters you told me, sir, carbon emissions, water, energy. So how to assess in this regard of LCA, sir? Means will we get any kind of calculations or the outputs or any kind of certifications? So what sort of benefit we are going to get in our campus, sir, through this LCA?
Yeah. So for example, ma'am, there are multiple benefits are there. First of all, like you are going to recognize yourself to the all your, you can say, competitors. Like your campus is unique. Why? Because you are taking care of all the environmental activities or the sustainability aspects, and you have to showcase. For example, once you get an idea that your building is 5-star rated. 5-star rated means in terms of LEEDs or Griha. So everybody knows that this building is 5-star rated. It means this building is very unique compared to other building. Why? You have a certain answer to that. Like you are using the renewable energy, you are harvesting the water, you are taking care of your resources. Whatever the waste is coming, you are converting into biogas or the compost and so on and so forth. So basically, one is the bigger name, it will be coming to you. Second, you are practicing the things in your campus. Your students are learning itself. It means those are the most important investment the institute is doing. And in terms of like FD, when you get in a better interest rate, so when they will go into the market, they are going to practice. They will give you the name that from where you are and how you are learning. So that institute contribution to their growth is going to be very, very high. And then at the end of the day, what you are going to see is your overall operational cost is going to be reduced significantly, whether it is academic institution or any industry. When you are going to follow something like this, you will get to know where the issues are there, how much energy you can control, and so on and so forth. So based on that, ultimately you are going to see the benefit is in terms of money, economy. Economical benefits are going to be huge. And once you are able to manage or showcase this to the top management of the institute in terms of money, every mindset will be easy to get through, because they know like at the end of the story is the profit marking. So once we are able to convert our exercise into the economic terms, like which we use the term life cycle costing. So once we do this life cycle costing, it will be easy for us to answer, and management will really say yes to those exercise into the campus itself also. So I have a tool which I will share that, and if the time permit, I will showcase that, like what are those different elements are there which can be taken care, and standard methodology is there. So once you put your numbers there, you will get an answer like where you stand in the context of sustainability. I'm able to answer, ma'am?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
any other participants have any question until now? Okay, so I'll continue.
Actually, this, sir,
ma'am.
one more, sir.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, this municipal means we stay in Hyderabad, sir.
Right, ma'am.
As the municipal corporation has kept some rules for the shopping complexes or some food stalls or kind of things, not to use any carry bags. If they use that plastic or polythene bags, they are going to
Yes.
fine 1,000 or 2,000. So in this
Yes, ma'am.
regard, many of the shopping complexes or the shops have means they are forced to use the cloth bags or some other bags, not to give such kind of things. That is also a good initiative, no sir?
Yeah, I can say it's a not
Means
completely yes or
small
no.
tea stalls.
Yeah, I will not say completely yes and no, but my answer will be little more in a simplified way. You see, ma'am, when you are taking certain decision, you think first an alternative to this. Once you say stop, stopping with the command and control, which is one of the physical measures in the economics, command and control, in stop, it means you are using your power. Stop it. I don't like it. So people are stopping. So what happens is you will go with certain alternative, right? Alternative, how it is
Yes.
beneficial to the system at that moment we don't know, because system asks you to stop. Why they are stopping? Because the top management is asking to stop it, and you have to implement
Yes.
that by whatever the reason. So those actions on the long term are not good. Unless it comes in your habit, it's going to be difficult. So unless you are bringing an alternative, if you remember, once initially the polythene was banned, bags were banned. So there are alternative bags were coming. Like you see, those are very synthetic type of material was there. That was more disastrous than the polythene bag. But nobody knows about that, how it is going to damage. So until that, the market is on for those people, right? So it is very
Yes.
important whenever we take certain decision and implement in the public domain, we should have a proper answer, and there should be a proper strategy. What could be a better alternative? Now you can see the narration. For example, you once this polythene bag or the one-time use of plastic was banned in 2018, right? This 2018
Yes.
or 17th, our World Environment Day. I was parallelly communicating what the government of India was narrating. I was on the Doordarshan to communicating with the public how the meaning of these are there. Want to communicate is, you immediately see in the social media after a few months that the wooden based, you can say one time use of these alternatives came, like spoon and the bowls and all these things. First, anybody have to know from where this material is coming. Ultimately, it's coming from our green plants. So what is happening is, from where these green resources is coming, we have to see it may be going to be more disastrous if it is directly cutting the trees and forest, bamboo, and so, unless it is going to be a sustainable way. So what is happening? It is good to showcase immediately like alternative, but that may not be in a sustainable solution. So my thought process always with the government system, when they come up with certain strategy like this, I always say, please plan something. Don't just put in a things on the other's mouth and you are asking forcefully. You please understand what you want. For example, I gave an example of public transport. Let me know, ma'am, in Hyderabad, I take an example from Hyderabad. Anytime you get to know from the government, they ask the public like you what facility you want in a public transport so that you can move from your private vehicle to public transport. Let me know whether somebody asked you. Anytime somebody asked, ma'am? Sunita, ma'am? No, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just ask you now, all the 44 participants, anybody came to you and asked, okay, sir, tell me if you, what facility I have to provide you in public transport so that you move from your private vehicle to public transport. Anybody can answer me? Any government or any agency approached you? I believe no.
Yes, sir. No, sir.
No. So you
No,
see,
sir.
we
No.
are the users. We are the users, and people are expecting from us to move our, you can say, style from one mode of transport to another. Please ask me why I am using a private vehicle, why I am not using public transport. So unless you will not understand my thing, how you are going to take care of my thought process, and how you are expecting I will move to the public transport. So it means in some of the policy decisions, sometimes you have to use the top to down approach, and some of the decisions you have to use the bottom up approach. So bottom up approach means they have to come to you, because you are the right stakeholder to tell exactly why you are using the public, why you are not using the public transport, why you are using the private vehicle. So you will get maybe 5 answers to that, and like that, when you go to the mass, you will maybe find it out that 20 common problems have been identified from the public. And if you are able to meet even 50% of those expectations, people starts moving to the public transport. So that's the way the policy formulations has to be taken place. Strategies have to be made, and implementations have to be done by doing this. If you're just thinking an air conditioned room, or we just you 5 people visited Singapore and Berlin, and then you saw something and then made some fancy policy and then implemented, it's just a waste of time, of resources, what you are doing. For example, you see in Delhi, smoke tower is there, and they are making full of public that the smoke tower will remove the air pollution from the atmosphere, and huge crores of money, which is public money, our money, is wasted. Even though I'm open to that, because I am a person who works in air quality, this is not a solution, right? Basically what you are doing is you are penalizing us. The industry who is polluting, you are not penalizing them, or the other sources which are they are releasing the pollution, you are not penalizing them, you are indirectly penalizing us. And these are not the sustainable solution. It is just an eye wash, because they want to make happy some people into the system that they are doing something to control the pollution. Whether it is controlled or not, nobody asks you. They will see, yes, there are certain actions on ground, and that's happening. That's all. You're getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah,
you.
these are
Thank
just
you so
few, some examples, like where I am saying why I'm giving these examples. I'm the first person be part of this multimodal transport in Delhi, where we started the thought process with multimodal, where the metro, BRT, monorail, light rail, even though there was none person from the IIT system as well. So people talking about the experts, I don't know, but even the person from the top institutions were not part of that system. And where you see like how the implementation happens, and now the metro is almost in most of the places in the country. Unfortunately, the BRT was not made successful. It is not that it is not successful model, it is successful model, you have not made it successful. Otherwise, who will use your cars and scooters, motorcycle? If everybody starts using so much of public transport, then your entire auto industry will go. So that's the case. There are certain trade-off, and there are certain political dimensions also, social dimensions also, business dimensions also. It means we have to take care of all those things if you really want to sustain in the system. So that's where I was talking about these things, like how the raw materials have to be used, and it will give you the complete indications what are my footprints. Footprints could be in carbon, water, ecosystem, natural system, and so on and so forth. Another important aspect is, I was just trying to tell you with the previous example, it is important to take a wider view. Sometimes if you are thinking very narrow level or very small level, benefits will not be multiple fold. And people ask you sometimes a simple question, like if I am switching to electric mobility, is this a good idea? Anybody want to answer this? If I'm switching to electric mobility, electric vehicles, for example, in Hyderabad, for example, in Andhra Pradesh, if I am moving to electric vehicles, is this a good solution?
If that comes from the renewable energy sources,
Yes,
somewhat
yes, very good, ma'am. So it means if the same load is going to be there on the grid, then there is no benefit, because what you are doing is you are shifting the pollution from one place to another place. But if you are generating the energy within your own system, when I say system, it means your own city. If you are able to produce the energy, and moreover mostly from the renewables, yes, then it's a very healthy decision, because you are not putting a pressure on the other resources. So you are reducing the pollution at other places also, and at your place also. So in such cases, if the decision is like this, yes, you can think of. Simply, it's not like if electric vehicle is there and that is going to help you in the removing the pollution. It's a trade-off. Somewhere you are polluting more, somewhere you are polluting less, and that's the case where we have to understand how exactly it is making an impact. So that's why I'm saying like we should have a little wider view when we are giving a thought process. So let's talk about that burden safety. So people say like you go with the electric vehicles. Yes, what madam is saying correctly, if our energy is coming from the thermal power plant, then there is no point, because the pollution you are reducing from urban environment, that's very good, but at the same time you are putting the pressure on some other places and they are becoming more and more polluted. If you cut this dimension, and if you are using either the solar or if the wind energy or whatever, like different type of biomass, so depending upon that within the city itself, and you are running your mobility, yes, this is a good decision. So it's very important to understand like why it is beneficial and why it is not beneficial. Some examples from the Europe, even nowadays very common in our Indian context also, like plastic, in terms of weight it is very less, but paper comes from the tree, not oil. People talks about the very different dimensions. When you are talking about like from where it is coming from, Brazil is having so much of forest, but when you talk about India, we don't have that much of green cover. So if it is coming from Brazil, okay. If it is coming from India, no. So it means various dimensions are there, from where the raw material is coming, how it is coming, which industry is going to use, how they are going to use, which technology they are going to use. It means various dimensions are there, and that is going to help you to take a final decision. So if you talk about only per se from the industry point of view, then your footprints are more for the paper bag compared to others. But when you shift from paper bag to the bags which are reusable, like the clothes bag, a jute bag, which can be used multiple times. For example, this polythene bag and this paper bag, maybe its life is maybe once. It may be maximum one for the main purpose and one or two maybe some other purpose. But this jute bag may use maybe 100 to 200 times for the same purpose. So that is one important reason. The reuse of a particular product makes it more sustainable. It's not that one time, if you compare, then jute bags emissions or the damage is more. But when you are using 100 times, 200 times for the purpose for which you are using the paper and the polythene bag, that makes your you can say impact almost less, like 0.08, 0.04 and 0.001. So almost like 8 times or 4 times less compared to other products are there. So this is the way when we compare, there are multiple dimensions to compare, to analyze our system. So what does a life cycle assessment involve? Normally, like there are things, what Peter Drucker was saying, the most serious mistakes are not being made a result of wrong answer. The truly dangerous thing is asking a wrong question. And that's where like life cycle is a framework that helps us to ask the right question. And it's also having a very clear thought process. So life cycle is actually a thinking process. And that's why nowadays people also say life cycle thinking. So life cycle thinking, what they want to tell is basically when you design any strategy, policy, any intervention, from the day first, you have to think about life cycle perspective. Like if you use this type of material or that type of material, what will be the consequence? If this is coming from the wagons or if it is coming from the trucks, how much implications are going to be there? Whether my decentralized plant or centralized, whether we go with the decentralized plant or the centralized plant, what could be the implication? City is generating construction and demolition waste, whether a plant will be made between 5 cities, one plant, or 5 plants in 5 cities. How to take a decision? It means we have to do certain analysis to take an informed decision. So what exactly this life cycle will do is, it is going to talk about like a compass, and it will tell you in which direction you are supposed to do, supposed to go. How to go? If there are a number of things are there, they will answer you, and then you can. But it will not give you the exact map. What is the difference between map and compass? If anybody want to tell, What is the difference between the map and compass?
Sir, in map, we usually
Compass
show
will
the
show the
north,
directions, sir.
Yes.
and
And a map will give you,
map, we have to set the
I'm just taking this point, sir. This
Where
is
to
one
go,
point.
it gives the sir.
Yeah. And this. For example, map, like if you have this pathway, you will follow this only. Right? If somebody will tell you the direction you have from this direction to this direction you have
Yes,
to go, you will try to explore how to go, where to go, which mode of transport I have to use, which is the shortcut, which is the long cut, right? Multiple thought process will come, and you will take a decision what suits to you, right? This is the life cycle will give you answer. Instead of one solution, it is giving you multiple directions, multiple things. If you go by with this is the implication. If you go by this is the implication. For example, my students have developed an app. For example, you are standing somewhere in a city and you want to take a vehicle or mode of transport. So you just put in a you can say in the app, from this place to that place I want to go, it will give you immediately 5 options. From bus, or you can say auto, or you can say the metro, like that 5 options came. If you go by bus, you have to pay 5 rupees for this particular distance. Your carbon footprints are 200 gram. If you go by metro, your price will be 7 rupees, but your carbon footprints will be 100 gram, like this. Now it's easy, right? It gives you clear picture. What is going to happen, what type of mode of transport you are going to use. If you are going to use somewhere the price is important aspect, somewhere the carbon footprints are also given. And they are also telling you how much time approximately it is going to take this. So now you as a person, if your time is very precious, you will take time as a very important aspect. Doesn't matter how much cost it will be. One person who is economically not that good, he may think, okay, what I am supposed to do, even after 10 minutes late or 20 minutes late, I will be reaching. It doesn't matter. But if I'm saving 20% of my cost, it is important for me. So you're getting my point. So life cycle will give you all these answers. And that now you have to take your own call, which one is better in your context for your purpose, whether that this particular decision is going to help to achieve your thought process, your goal, your objective. That's where the life cycle will give an answer to you. So certain benefits of a science-based approach. One good thing is that life cycle is using the science-based approach. Instead of they just say, oh, better, good, better, but somebody asks you better in what terms? I don't understand. People say it's a better. You don't know why. But this tool will tell you why it is better. Like for example, my carbon footprints in this particular activity are 50% less than yours. I am giving you exact number. That will help you to tell why your particular activity or why this particular methodology is superior, performing better, or technology is performing better compared to others. It means you are using a proper scientific method which is giving an answer, and when you go with the science-based approach, your strategies are robust, your directions are robust, because you can back up with your numbers, you can say your calculations, your analysis to support the whatever the type of argument, whatever the questions will be there, you will be able to answer. But when the things are very subjective, very much fuzzy, very much linguistic term, it's very difficult. For example, like people who come from other part of the country to Andhra Pradesh, for them it's very hot, but maybe for local people it's not maybe that very hot. So the definition of hotness of the weather may change from person to person. It's a perception based, but in this case it's not a perception. Basically it is an exact number or the scientifically driven number or analysis which give you a holistic view to understand the problem. So that's a very good point is in the life cycle. That is I already answers to you. I give you some of the answers. Like for example, this is the original system. Like what is happening is, like you are making some assembled, you can say, cars. there are certain manufacturing of car parts which is coming from different, you can say, sub company level. They are using raw material energy and they are releasing the emissions. Then the car parts are coming here, they are packaging. Box parts are their transportation, and then assembled the car. What I made some changes is, in the previous case or this case is, you see the red color. So in the red color, you're going to see that, sorry, these are the new, you can say, dimensions are there. So what I did is packaging the boxed car part, the transportation, unboxed car part, assembled car, empty box again transported, reused into the box, more energy. Only the problem is we don't know. The box waste is less, but energy is going to be consumed more because there is certain transport involvement. So what is going to happen, how the emissions are going to change, we don't know. But if you are using the life cycle, it give you understand, you like answer, like reducing the energy consumption, increasing the toxicity, and so it means you are able to reduce the energy, but somewhere your impact on the ecosystem in terms of toxicity is increased. Now it is up to you whether you want to go with the decision or not, or you want to change again. Otherwise, the implications is going to be more. So that's the way, like, we have to give in a thought process. And at the end of the day, like for example, this is the original product, and this is the life cycle optimized product. And at the end of the day, you can see if the original product impacts in terms of global warming, smog, ozone depletion, eutrophication, acidification is 100%. So alternative decision is like 20% reduction is global warming, approximately 10% reduction in smog, ozone depletion 40% reduction, 21% in eutrophications, and 70% in acidification. So if you feel like the change you are bringing by optimizing your product and the amount of cost you are investing and the benefits you are receiving, if you feel it's in a proper decision, you can take it and go forward. Otherwise, you can again optimize with certain other alternatives, and it will help you to take the decisions better. So how life cycle can help you? Like for example, engineers, I'm just giving a few examples so you can correlate it with this. So in this case, like for example, engineers can choose the material and the design features with the perspective of product development, product improvement, products comparison. Sometimes people say I'm using the nano material which is coming from in a waste, and that's why my product is sustainable. This is not the answer for sustainable product. You have to think about the entire, you can say, life cycle, and then see what type of trade-offs are there. And if you're really able to compare with the existing product, then you have to say my product is superior in which context. That's a more important and precise answer, instead of just simply saying, using the jargons, my product is superior, my product is sustainable. Policymakers, once they know like a particular design is having less impacts, the pressure is less on the resource consumption, then it will be easy for the person to take the decisions. Consumers, they are aware that the product they are buying, how much impacts are there. So for example, like you go to in the market, they claim it's in a it's in a better environmental friendly product, but we don't know whether better means what, whether they are, my quality of product is superior, or whether my process is superior. No answer is there. When you're going to buy an organic product, you know, like it's related to your health, it's very easy for you to compare because it's directly connected to your health. You will buy it. You are not sure whether it is really organic or not, but you are buying. But when somebody says it's an environmental friendly product, it's not directly related to your health. So you don't know, you are not maybe that conscious compared to the organic product. It's better when the disclaimers are there on the product, why this product is superior compared to others. It's easy for the consumers to take a decision that this product is superior over other products in the same category. So that's where like the life cycle is going to help you. So by this, I just want to take again few questions. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer. Any questions, please?
Sir, every individual can also work out, na, sir, their life cycle, daily, how much they're spending energy, water consumption, all this.
Yeah, means you see, the life cycle is a bigger tool, right? It is generally used for the major decisions. For the
Yes.
day-to-day things, you cannot use because it's a intensive in terms of resource, and then there should be a proper expertise. But yes, for simple tools like what Madam was asking, if you generate a tool and you put your inputs, you will get an answer like what is my carbon footprints today, right? That
Yes.
answer you will get. That's easy. But life cycle is generally used for important decisions, like for example when you're talking about for the all the aspects. So that is the case where you have to think about using the life cycle for important decisions making. For example, you say like for example a certain material composition has to be changed, so should I go for that or not? So life cycle will give you a better perspective about the decisions. So like that there are many cases where the life cycle will give you a better answer.
Yes.
So looking into the time, sir, I'm just jumping into some aspects where the
Sir,
madam. Yes, yes, please. Yes,
sir,
somebody
excuse me,
was.
sir.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Being, yes, sir, Sunita.
Yes, ma'am.
Being environmental science faculty, I teach my students not to to protect the environment, pollution, everything, and all. I will be teaching, sir. But still, when it comes to practicality, being a housewife or a mother or taking care of the family, means when I go to market or get some vegetables, so all those things will be packed in a polythene bag. Though I know not to use them to protect the environment, in some circumstances I'm forced to use them. For example, just a simple example, when I want to use the vegetables or to keep it in the refrigerator, I have to use the polythene bags in order to segregate to reduce my time in separating the vegetables. So these are the minute things which cannot be avoided, right, sir? So
Yeah,
means I think I do.
yeah, please go,
Sir,
ma'am.
tell
Yeah,
me, sir.
yeah. So my answer to this is
So
it's not that complicated, ma'am.
sir,
Because for example I am using the things which is multiple, I can use for multiple times. Like for example, if you're taking an example of polythene, so if I'm giving my example of my house, so I'm using different set of containers or the polythene bags of different standard, which is used for multiple times, so that usage becomes make it my impacts less compared to what we use the normal polythene bags. So once you use and then you have to throw it, right? So your footprints are going to increase. For example, I remember, I don't know whether my wife, anytime they put the organic waste, which is coming from kitchen, is into the dustbin. I don't think she have put into that. So she had made a habit, all the things which comes from your vegetable, fruits, everything will be going to the either the animals who eat it or going to the compost. So you can see at the net in the overall from a household level, your half of the waste is already decreased. And if you take an example of South Korea, I made a visit, and many of our you can say political people, they also visited how they are doing. So what they have done is they made in a policy. There are certain poly bags, means bags are there, and whenever you throw your means whenever you put your waste, so that is based on the quantity, and you have to pay for that. So what happens is by default, within a year, 30% of the waste quantity automatically reduced, because you are paying money. If 1 kg is there, X amount you are paying. If it is the Y kg is there, this is some money is involved. So what happens? Somewhere it is putting an impact on your style of your like lifestyle, and once it is making an impact on your lifestyle, means your behavior. Oh, I'm paying that much. How to reduce so that my cost go down? Because it's daily practice, right? So that much of certain amount is going down from your budget. So that's where 30% reductions automatically happen with the only without going into another thing. It's just a change in the behavior. So what you are saying, ma'am, correct. Only the thing is that just the right think or thought process in that direction will definitely help. For example, when you go to the vegetable market, they will give you the polythene bags. But once you say, I will not take it, then they will say, oh, so they will feel uncomfortable, then starts giving you whatever the way you want. Like for example, somebody even want to take the in their own jute bag. So what is happening, if you realize, I can see the situation practically. When you go to vegetable market, they are in so hurry when the number of people are more. Just they simply say, ma'am, just you take it in the polythene bag, and they give you immediately. By the time you will bring your bag, take it there, and then see how the operational aspect is there, it's becoming difficult for them because they are losing the time. If we becomes a little more active, immediately we'll say, yes, you put into this bag, it's easy to handle. Otherwise, it's not going to be difficult, ma'am, because we are practicing the same since long, not like simply we are doing. We're just moving our lifestyle in a different way. That's why they becoming little complicated. Otherwise, it's not that difficult to manage what we were doing earlier also. I'm just skipping some of the slides and just directly go to the carbon footprint exercise, where a little easy, and maybe in 5 minutes, I just want to conclude looking to the time. When you talk about the carbon footprints and the GHG accounting, so basically it's a direct relations what you do. From this diagram, what you are going to see, this is the human sphere, this one in the center, and something is coming this way. You can see this arrow, this is coming to your system, and you are utilizing this resource here, and this is coming out. It could be in terms of a loss, or it could be in terms of a waste, and that is going into the environment, and you are degrading. So basically in this ecosphere, the human beings are there and the resource is there. The way you use the resource in this particular system, I'm talking about, this is an urban setup. You can take your body itself as a metabolism, and you see there is certain input and their output. The way how you consume, how the energy will be generated, that's completely dependent on your system. So if you are taking care the resources very judiciously, then definitely your pressure on the resources will be less, and in terms of the waste which is generated is also going to be less, and that's where the footprint exercise is going to be important. So I'm just skipping some slides and just tell you what exactly we are doing. For example, I was just looking like where we stand in terms of carbon footprints of Indian context. So you're going to see that our values now, as on date, it is 2016. So as on date, our you can say emissions are approximately two sorry, you can say the tons per capita per annum. Our emissions are there in terms of the carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. But when you compare with the other country, for example, India is 2.62, China is 10.3, US 5.4, European Union 3. This, world automatically they are contributing this much. But in the actual sense, when you're going to see like who is contributing in terms of CO2 emissions per capita, per person, how much emissions are there, can you see the 20 top countries are there where the per capita emissions are so high. People don't believe the Qatar type of country can be on the top list where the emissions are highest. Nowhere our country is there, but yes, some of the important country you can identify. For example, United States of America is there, Canada is there. So looking into their, we can say, resource consumption, definitely they are on a higher side. Just to cut short, we see India is here, 105 ranked, and we are 1.92 in terms of CO2 emissions, tons of emissions released from the per capita in the Indian context. So we are far behind in terms of our lifestyle and the way we use the resources. But the problem is when this number is multiplied with our population, we become top because our contribution becomes on a higher side. So that's, you can see, this is the actual emissions. You can see our total contribution when you are going to see comparatively, it's less than half of this US, and so. But we are coming in the top 5 contributors in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions. So that's where the problem is. Even though we are more sustainable, more, you can say, better in terms of using the resources, compared to most of those developed countries. But the problem is our numbers becomes a problem. As soon as you multiply, it becomes a problem. So what we do is, if you're going to see what the overall picture of greenhouse gas emissions, you're going to see that energy is the most important aspect of the sector, where almost more than 73% of the GHG emissions are coming from energy. That give you a clear hint wherever you are using energy, whether you are talking about your campus, whether you are talking about your household, whether you are talking about business, first you have to take care of your energy. It means if you move from the grid-based energy system to another renewable options or more smarter devices, or indirectly you consume less. For example, there are many buildings nowadays, it's very well ventilated, naturally sunlight is there. You can say until evening there is no need of the daylight. So even the daylight, or you can say artificial light, which is required in the building, it is going to be huge. It has been seen that in the building or construction sites, the operational side of the building will be contributing to 85 to 95% of the emissions. So it shows that the more beyond the construction material, the operational side is very, very important. Second is, you can see the agriculture, forestry and land use, where you can see how you can control. And then you're going to see the industries and waste, they are very less when you compare this. But yes, energy is used in many forms. Like for example, road transport, aviation, residential building. You can see this residential building is very significant proportion. When you compare both commercial and residential building, out of this entirely 17.5% is contributed the energy in the building. So it means it is the most important, you can say, aspect to be taken care. When you talk about transport, 16% is there. Then electricity used in the industry for various purposes, this is another. So these are the three domains where we can really significantly see how we can reduce the energy consumption by either change in the process, technology, or the operational things, so that the pressure will be reduced into the system. What we talk about the greenhouse gas emissions is, we generally talk about scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3. I just quickly tell you, scope 1 is what directly you release from your own system, and scope 2 is entirely the energy which is coming from the grid, and scope 3 which is not generated by you. For example, if you take your college or your own personal thing, if you're talking about the college, if a vehicle, like for example, student bus you are using, but student bus is not owned by the college, it is rented, then it's part of scope 3. But if the buses are owned by the institute, then it is part of the scope 1. So like that, we have to divide the categories of your scoping, and then it's easy. First priority will be always scope 1, second priority and third priority. Generally people do this. And these are the number of different greenhouse gases which can be taken care. And in the one last slide, I want to showcase how exactly the carbon footprints are to be calculated. It's a very simple exercise. Basically, this is not this can be seen like this: either mass, either it can be volume, it could be kilowatt hour, or it could be in terms of kilometer. So once you know your activity, how much is the activity? For example, a car is running 100 kilometers per day, and if you know what is the emission factors, I know 1 kilometer car, when it runs, it produces 250 gram of CO2. I just multiplied by CO2 this much, and that results into 25000 this much of grams of CO2 released into the atmosphere from my activity. So once you know all these activity data, how much fuel I'm using, how much energy I'm using, how much garbage I'm releasing, how many trips I've made, you just calculate these numbers with the emission factors, you will get your carbon footprints from the exercise. And these are very standard factors are there. You can take those. If it is not available, you can take from the published literature and then find out your activity. You will get an answer completely to this particular exercise. So I will be stopping here and take few more questions before I will close. Yes. Yeah. If any
Sir,
questions,
I have one question.
जी
I'm
sir,
Dr.
जी sir.
Parthivan from Chennai Institute of Technology.
Right sir, right sir. Yeah.
Sir, actually, you have discussed during our discussion promotion of public transport.
जी जी.
That is why not still in full-fledged implemented in India. What are the hurdles are there? I'm actually specialized in transportation, but still even Chennai, I'm in Chennai. The private vehicles are very high compared to maybe 5 years, 10 years back. What is the government policies in this regard, particularly on the environmental aspect, air pollution?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
my
See, sir. Yes, yes. I got your point. My
my
voice
voice
is yeah, yeah. Thank you. So what is happening is, first of all, if you are going to see our policy for sustainable transport, right? Hardly any dimensions to the environment is given, except the few words are there into sustainability or environmental perspective. Only what happens is, in the COP21, first time the government of India came with an intention that whatever our urban infrastructure is coming under the different missions, for example, the Amrut, where we are talking about the urban rejuvenation or urban transformation. So they're talking about the transport should be more of sustainable, right? Then now they're thinking about this and they are coming with the multi-modal transport system. Before that, they were not coming out, and that's why that you have to make a strategy in such a way that what is your demand. If your demand is taken care, so if you are able to take care of your demand and you are able to map the density based, like there are certain indicators, then definitely your public transport will be successful. But the problem is there is a limit of every city where the maximum you can have, like 70% or 80% of the population you can serve with the public transport. The only problem hurdle is coming is because in your policy planning, nowhere the importance is given to this particular dimension of environment or sustainability. That's why you're just moving, like for example, move towards electric vehicle, and so you're moving with the pressure, but you're not moving with the strategy. There the problem is there that we are not able to reduce the burden which is there into the system. For example, Bangalore, if you take certain measures they are taking to reduce the implications of the transport, because the pollution in Bangalore city 50% or more is only coming from the transport emissions. So now they realize their actions are very important, and then government is also supporting and the local people are also doing, because their belongingness to the cities there, and they are able to control some extent. They are progressing. I'm not saying 100%. They are progressing with a small delta change into their system. Unable to answer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so if no more questions, so thank you from my side. Professor Reddy and Professor Raju can take it.
Yeah, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable time. So we are happy to associate with you. So in future also.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So with the permission, can I leave?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Be sharing my presentation and the other resource material. So I don't have any objection if you want to share with all the participants.
Yeah, please share with us.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience for listening me. Thank you very much. Take care. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So, dear all participants, we will come back. Please come back by 12:40 for the next session.